we were speaking before about my chronotype.
Yes.
And mine is a Dolphin.
That's correct.
Which I find really fascinating, and I think it'll be great for you to share what a chronotype is.
So first of all, chronotypes have been around for a while. I did not invent chronotypes.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, they've been around since like the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
They were called morningness and eveningness. So there was a great questionnaire called the morningness, eveningness questionnaire. And we would label people as morning types or evening types. And somebody got the idea to name them early birds and night owls, right? But not everybody fit into that one of those two categories. So then they came up with hummingbirds in between.
It is with my absolute honor to introduce to you with Dr. Michael J. Breus, 4 times best-selling author.
That's me.
You are a psychologist and you are a sleep expert. You have also done so many media opportunities, appearances from Oprah. You've done
Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, Wall Street Journal, New York Times.
How did you become the sleep doctor?
Right when I was getting married, my best friend got a job at this company called Medscape, which turned into a company called WebMD. And so he was like, Michael, we need a sleep person at WebMD. Would you be interested? Yeah. So I signed on for 15 years. I was the WebMD sleep expert. I was the only sleep guy. That was it. Like I was the only person there for them to ask these questions to. We just decided to start educating people.
If you were to give that one key piece of advice for them to open the gates to whatever that is, what would that key be?
Welcome to the Queendom.
Hello, everyone. We are here with Keys to the Queendom live in LA, California. Now, this is my first international trip here, and I'm bringing you guys guest speakers that have built their empires and are changing the world and making big moves. Now, it is with my absolute honor to introduce to you with Dr. Michael J. Breus, 4 times best-selling author.
That's me.
You are a psychologist and you are a sleep expert. I have to touch on this though, because you have also done so many media opportunities, appearances from Oprah.
Yeah.
You've done
Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. Like it's endless. I don't think it's me though. I think it's the topic, right? Because sleep is such, well, I'm very passionate about it, but sleep is one of those topics. My son told me this the other day. He was like, Dad, you have the biggest niche in the world, right? He's like, there's very few people who are experts in sleep, and literally every human being on the face of the earth probably needs your advice at some point in time and then another. So I feel very fortunate to have been studying this for quite some time. And it's a fun topic, you know? I mean, it's something that people can get interested in and laugh about and take seriously. And, you know, you can actually improve.
You know what? It's funny because what I do for work is business mentoring. And I was literally going to go, I need to ask him the question on how you started to niche down. So I actually want to bring this forward because I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm doing a mastermind tomorrow as well. I'll be there.
Oh, you're going to be at that one? I'll be there too.
Yeah. So
awesome.
I'll be obviously there with everyone. But for the listeners who don't know who you are, how did you become the sleep doctor?
How did I become the sleep doctor? So, you know, to be honest with you, it wasn't as conscious a decision as you might think. So right when I was getting married, my best friend got a job at this company called Medscape, which turned into a company called WebMD, right? Everybody's heard of WebMD. And so he was like, Michael, we need a sleep person at WebMD. Would you be interested? Yeah. How tough can this be? Sure. So I signed on for 15 years. I was the WebMD sleep expert. About 3 years into it, my attorney called me up and he was like, you know, you're getting a lot on TV a lot. So what WebMD did was it was brand new. Yeah. And so if you were in journalism, all you did was go to WebMD for your medical experts because they were already vetted. You knew what you were getting, right? It was easy. I was the only sleep guy. That was it. Like I was the only person there for them to ask these questions to. So I started doing interview after interview after interview. And then all of a sudden my attorney was like, you know, you should probably get a website that you send people to. Because right now you're just sending people, you know, off into the distance, maybe create a brand, something like that. And so I was like, okay, how about the sleep doctor? And so we went out and we were able to find the person who owned the sleep doctor. They sold it to us. And slowly started to develop a brand. And so the goal of the brand has always been evidence-based education.
That's good.
Right? So what research has been done that we can apply to our lives and actually have some outcomes? Because there's a lot of research out there that you really can't do a whole lot practically with. That's stepping stones towards other things. And not saying that all research isn't important, because it is. But there's some things that are much more practical than others. And so over at the Sleep Doctor, the goal has always been, hey, how do we take really complicated stuff, drill it down into bite-sized actionable chunks for people so that they can actually do something with it, because they don't need to read scientific journals all day like what I do, right? They need somebody like me to distill it down and say, okay, here are the 5 things that I want you to do in order to get a better night's rest, and I need to make sure that they work. So we just decided to start educating people, and the blog got popular, then I got popular, then I wrote a book that got popular, and then all of a sudden, things just kind of started happening. And so, again, I feel super duper blessed, whatever the word is. I feel very fortunate that people are taking sleep seriously. It's about time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think the pandemic had a lot to do with that, because as soon as the pandemic hit, people started to really say to themselves, holy cow, like sleep's important to my immune function. Sleep's important for me not getting sick. Sleep's important for my energy level. Like now that, and especially with sheltering in place for a lot of us, we couldn't go anywhere. So getting your sleep really made a lot of sense. So it was really an interesting time for sleep. And I think sleep has evolved and changed quite a bit over time. So now we're at this kind of cool crossroads where sleep's a big deal. And we're trying to just continue to educate more and more people about what are sleep disorders, what's disordered sleep, what's a chronotype, things like that, just kind of some of the basic stuff to get them on their way.
And you said chronotype we were speaking before about my chronotype.
Yes.
And mine is a Dolphin.
That's correct.
Which I find really fascinating. And I think it'll be great for you to share what a chronotype is. And then we can talk about how dolphins and all the different types of chronotypes there are.
You bet. So first of all, chronotypes have been around for a while. I did not invent chronotypes.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, they've been around since like the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And they were called morningness and eveningness. So there was a great questionnaire called the morningness eveningness questionnaire. And we would label people as morning types or evening types. And somebody got the idea to name them early birds and night owls, right? But not everybody fit into one of those two categories. So then they came up with hummingbirds in between. Now, I got to be honest with you, hummingbirds just doesn't sound like a particularly smart name, right? Like it doesn't make any sense, right? You got early birds, got night owls, got hummingbirds. I haven't figured that one out. So that was going along just fine, but I had patients that didn't fit into any one of those 3 categories. I couldn't figure it out. And so I had one patient who came to me and I failed. I mean, I failed with this patient.
Wow.
Oh, it was awful. We tried everything. We tried medication. We tried cognitive behavioral therapy. We finally brought her in again. And she was like, Dr. Breus, if I could just sleep in a different time zone, my life would be so much better. I was like, say that one more time. She was like, if I could just go to bed at like maybe 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, get up at like 8:30 in the morning, and then start my day that way, she's like, I would be just fine. I was like, why don't you do that? She said, well, my boss wouldn't let me do that. My partner and my kids and all these other things wouldn't let me do that. And I said, well, how about for a week we try the experiment? She's like, you can give it a shot, but you have to call my boss. So I called her boss and I said, hey, I want to, run this experiment. And he said, no problem. He said, we can run the experiment, but she's fired at the end of the week.
Wow.
No pressure, right? And so I'm like, great, just what I wanted. So I said, okay, I mean, she's going to get fired anyway. We might as well give it a shot. So we had her show up at 10 o'clock, and she didn't leave until 6:30.
Yeah.
Got in with her husband and her kids. Everybody was on board for the program, called on Friday, and I talked to the boss, and the first words out of his mouth were, I got 3 other people I want you to see.
There you go. Isn't that interesting?
It was fascinating. And so he was like, I don't know what you did, but she works on a different schedule. And so I was like, yeah, I think she does.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can figure that part out. And so then I started to dive deep into the literature of chronotypes and realize, hey, this is somebody who had something that didn't fall into any of those categories, which is where the Dolphin chronotype eventually came from. So it turns out these are genetic. So you don't get to choose.
Yeah. And that's amazing, because when I looked into it, all of them are genetic. Is that right? Okay. And so I'm a Dolphin. So what are the characteristics of all of them?
So there's 4 different ones. So I by the way, I changed the names.
I was going to say,
right. So
remember simple marketing?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I said to myself, I'm not a bird. I'm a mammal. Right. I want to be something to aspire to. Right. So I wanted to choose animals. At first it was crystals, then it was colors. Then I was like, no, animals.
Love that.
And so once we got to animals, we said we needed to choose animals that were inspiring, that people would want to be. Right. But I also wanted animals that actually fit the circadian lifestyle. So if you were going to represent the early bird, you had to get up early, right? So we learned very early on, nobody wants to be a platypus. Okay. Nobody wants to be
What's
a
wrong with our
porcupine,
Australian animal?
right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so we had to choose these animals. So early birds turn into lions. Okay. So lions, king or queen. Who wouldn't want to be the king or queen of the jungle, right? I mean, it's amazing, right? These are my COOs. Notice I didn't say CEOs. I said COOs. These are my operators. These are my people who are up at 5:30 in the morning. They're firing off emails by 6. They've got a list of, things they do every day from 1 to 37. And they go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, very orderly, almost militant in their thinking. That's lions, makes up about 15% of the population. Yeah. Okay. Then hummingbirds turn into bears. Right? Who wouldn't want to be a teddy bear, right? It's the best. They like to wake up around 7:30, go to bed around 10:30. They make up a lot, 55% of the population. So 1 in 2 people is a bear.
Wow.
I wish I was a bear.
I was going to say, what are you?
I'm a wolf. I used to be a wolf. I'll explain.
Yeah.
So being a bear is the best because all of life's schedule is based on a bear schedule. Like a 9 to 5 work schedule, that's perfect for a bear because they want to get up at 7:30. They want to go to bed around 10:30. So it actually works out really, really well for them. Bears are the people that get the work done. So they're sometimes extroverted, sometimes introverted. They're always nice people. They'll invite you to your home for dinner, buy you a drink at the bar. Like they're really kind of cool, chill people who kind of get stuff done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you've got the night owls, which I call wolves. So that's what the category that I fall into. Now I've always fallen into this category. Both my parents were night owls and my wife is a night owl.
Interesting.
Okay. Now this was fascinating because before I wasn't studying chronotypes when I was dating my wife 23 years ago.
You manifested.
So, right? Did I? That'd be funny. So it was funny because I'd say, hey, what time do you want to go out? She'd say, pick me up at 8. And then we'd get to dinner at 8:30. We'd be done by 10. We go to the movies, 10:30, be done by 12:30, go get a drink or dessert, be done by 2. And that was a normal night for us. Like we didn't think anything about it.
Yeah.
And if I went out on some girls, they'd be like, pick me up at 6.
Like,
like who's staying out till 2 in the morning? And so my wife and I, we just kind of went on that path, right? So night owls are, well, we're the creatives. So we're the actors, the artists, the athletes, the people who've got something a little bit weird about them that kind of comes out at night. Yeah. That's the wolves out there. We're deeply loyal friends. We show up at the party at 11:30, but we stay till 2 o'clock and help you clean up.
Yeah.
We're different kinds of people. If we make a list, we go from step 1 to step 12 to step 47.
Yes.
And it makes perfect sense to us, but doesn't make sense to anybody else. I am a wolf, or I was a wolf.
Yeah.
I turned 55 this past year.
Yeah.
And when I turned about 52, 53, something weird started happening as I started wanting to get up earlier and I started wanting to go to bed earlier.
Interesting.
Now that's supposed to happen. So there's this thing that we call chrono longevity. So it turns out everybody goes through every one of the chronotypes.
Wow.
So think about it. When you're a baby, you're a lion. Go to bed early, wake up early.
Yeah.
When you're a toddler, go to bed early, wake up kind of early. When you're a teenager, what do you want to do? Stay up until 2, sleep until 2, right? Then you hit adulthood and it kind of locks and loads for about 30, 35 years.
Yeah.
And then once you get old like me, it starts to go backwards again. So anytime you talk to your parents or your grandparents and you say, hey, you want to go out to dinner? And they say, yeah, let's meet at 4:30, 5 o'clock. Right, for dinner, you're like, what's wrong with you? Their melatonin has gone backwards, so they're getting pushed backwards. So that's exactly what's kind of starting to happen to me as I get older. So we do move throughout, and so now I'm much more in somewhere in the bear to late bear category, maybe even lion or early bear on occasion. Yeah. Sometimes I just wake up at 6:30 for it, no reason at all, and I just get my day going if I want, something like that, hang out with my dogs.
I love that. And just hearing all that, I'm just reflecting on my past, and I'll go through that with you in a second because I think it's going to be really interesting. But the fact that I'm a dolphin, it really makes sense with my morning routine, getting up, training. But the fact for me, it's reducing caffeine intake. Can't believe I have to do that.
Yep.
And going to bed from 12 to 6, which I find really fascinating.
Yep.
Because since I've been here, I've actually been going to bed later.
Oh, good.
And waking up early, and I've been okay.
Yeah. So,
I'm alive.
So you're the 4th chronotype, which is the thing that I discovered, which is the dolphin. So up till now, nothing is new. Okay. Early bird, night owl, somebody in the middle. I just renamed them. No big deal.
Queen, how often have you said, I spent my whole life studying, I've been to school my whole life, and I've actually learned nothing that teaches me the tools and strategies to build a successful business in the outside world. You've probably spent thousands of dollars on courses, or you've heard fake news from business gurus. Well, I'm here to give this incredible news to everyone here right now that this is Queen Stream University. Get out of debt and actually start making money in the online space, knowing and having the foundations to build a successful business. Now, I'm talking because I have gone through the trenches. I have been a fitness coach, built my online business as a pro athlete, and now I am a business coach. You'll go from having absolutely no idea what your business is through, in the 8 weeks, learn the foundations of knowing what your purpose is, your vision and mission, and also understanding your business values with the execution to know what that business is. You'll also learn branding, social media, content strategy, marketing, and more importantly, how to sell. With Queenstream University, it'll cut out the bullshit and remove all the fluff and get you working specifically on your business so you can execute this in 8 weeks to get ready to launch. I wanted you to have something where you get to access something straight away, where you get to fast track your growth, as well as remove any doubt, any overwhelming sensation or stress, or the question that everyone seems to ask, where do I begin? With Queenstream University, you'll be able to build wealth, freedom, and at the end of the day, be an entrepreneur and be able to say, I have finally built my own thing, my own business. And I've stopped making money for someone else, and I'm now making money for my own empire. Queenstream University.
This is where it gets interesting. So what we found was about 10% of the population has chronic insomnia, a little bit of anxiety, some mild health concerns, and it gets wrapped up into their personality, their sleep schedule, their whole thing, right? And that's where we end up with dolphins, right? Now, to be fair, dolphins are who I wrote the book for. They're my favorite people in the universe. I love dolphins. They're the best. Well, because they're fun, they're energetic, they got lots going on. And they're always, trying to get something going and having a good time. But they are plagued by sleep issues. And so a lot of times they'll say to me, Michael, I can't fall asleep, or wake up in the middle of the night, I can't get back to sleep. And I've got different, strategies for each one of those types of things for my dolphins. But generally speaking, the dolphins really they've been this way for a while. Now, I do have some people where they're a dolphin by circumstance. So what do I mean by that is, you're a journalist and you have to wake up at 4:00 in the morning every morning, right? Something crazy like that. Or you're traveling all over the universe like you do, right? So those types of things your environment can force you into a very erratic chronotype, which is not too much fun at all. And so when that happens, sometimes if we can get you sleeping well, then your true chronotype oftentimes pops out. And that's where that 12 to 6 comes into play. Because what a lot of people who are dolphins do is they're like, oh shit, I don't have 8 hours. It's going to take years off the back end of my life. I'm going to have more wrinkles. I'm going to not be able to work out at the gym. Like all of these things, none of which are true. Like there's no data to support any of them. I mean, I told you at the beginning of the show, everything I do is with clinical evidence, right? So real data has to be there. And there's just no evidence to support that. Like very few people actually need 8 hours of sleep. Very few.
I love that you say that, because as an entrepreneur, there was all these, I guess right now it's like being the 5 a.m. club, now the 4 a.m., which I sort of fall in that bracket because I was like, well, I'm the most creative at, 4 a.m. and then I'm going to get my stuff done. But it's nice to hear that because there's been no evidence proven that you need all this.
So the 5 a.m. club is just about the worst idea in the universe. All right. And I'll explain why. And look, I've met and talked with several of those folks who kind of aspire to or have that as their thing, as their mantra, as their schedule. Here's the bottom line is 85% of the world can't do that genetically. 85%. So it's great for 15%. It's a lot of people, right? But what I don't like is the fact that they don't tell you, hey, by the way, you could genetically not be able to do this and fail and feel like crap about yourself for failing, when in fact, It's your genes, man. Like it has nothing to do with your motivation for waking up at 4, which by the way, nobody should wake up at 4.
Yeah, that was
Nobody.
me. Sorry. You can
Nobody.
slap my hand.
It's not good.
Where can we, there's a quiz that
Yes.
the listeners, we'll put that in the description box because I think, as you said, 4 a.m. is a myth.
It's really not the best
Sorry.
idea. So I created a quiz. It's about 30 questions, depending upon how far you get.
Yeah.
It only takes about 2 minutes. If you go to chronoquiz.com, you can take it there. Or if you go to my website, thesleepdoctor.com, you can take it there. Also, you've got some hints already. Like you kind of probably already know a little bit of who you are, or maybe you know who your parents were, and that gives you some indication. I mean, I remember when I was a small boy, 5, 6 years old, I could walk into my parents' room at midnight. Both of them would be up. All the lights would be on. My mom would be reading. My dad would be maybe watching the news. And it was midnight. And they didn't. And I'm 5. And they're like, "What are you doing?" You know, like I was an only child. So, you know, it was very nighttime focused household.
Yeah.
Growing up. So you just have to kind of start to think about it. But here's the best part is once you know your chronotype, you actually know what your hormonal distribution is for the next 24 hours. So if you time it right, you could time something when your hormones are actually naturally at their highest point.
Yeah, okay.
In order to do it the best. So I can actually tell you the best time of day to have sex, eat a cheeseburger, ask your boss for a raise, go to sleep, have coffee, have alcohol. Like it's endless, the number of things that I can show you the perfect time of day to do them.
I really want to go into that. My partner's going to love you. And it's funny that he's not here. But I wanted to also just go back to just diving deeper is what I was saying to you before around my upbringing. So I was actually, when I was 21, so I'm turning 34 in a few days.
Congratulations. You look amazing.
Thank you so much. Can we hang out? And when I was 21, I went to a therapist and she had put me straight away from one session. It was a 30-minute session on still knocks.
Okay.
And I was 21. And then I got off it very quickly, but I was very addictive straight away. And so you said I was a dolphin. Insomnia is a massive thing. I went to the straight quick fix thing. Now, this must be a massive thing right now with a lot of people where even myself for a really long time was I just want the easiest thing, quickest thing.
Everybody wants a pill to sleep.
Yes. And so what advice do you give to the people out there? And I think the percentage now is quite high with prescriptions and stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
So since COVID, and I don't have stats for Australia, but I do have some stats for the United States.
Yeah.
During COVID, we had a 23% increase in sleeping pill prescriptions written. So on top of already too many people, 23% more people were getting prescriptions. Now, the medication you said, Stilnox, I believe that's called Ambien here in the United States.
Yeah.
It's the number one sleeping aid, I think, in the world that's out there. And so what do we do with people? So first of all, let's have this discussion because it's an important one. So number one, if your doctor places you on a sleeping tablet, that is between you and your doctor. Do not go taking yourself off of it because you listen to us on this podcast. Yes. Okay, we're not here to give you medical advice, but we are here to plant a few seeds to let them grow for you to understand a little bit more. There are people out there who need a pill to sleep. Bottom line, there are. Yeah. But to be fair, most people that are on these pills don't need to be. I believe that sleeping pills are very overprescribed. What we used to call it in school was we'd call it what's called a door handle diagnosis. So this means that as the doctor's got their hand on the door to go out, the patient says, "Oh, by the way, I'm not sleeping so hot." Like, and you're already behind schedule, right? You're like, "Oh, here we go." So what do? You reach into your pocket, you grab out your prescription pad, you write Ambien, number 30, take at night, with 3 refills, and you hand it to him and say, "Come back in 3 months, you should be fine." Yeah. That's the problem right there.
You don't come back after 3 months.
Well, either you don't come back after 3 months or you're kind of left to your own devices with a very powerful medication that you really don't have a whole lot of training on, right? Yeah. And so people show up in my doorstep usually in one of 3, maybe 4 different scenarios. So number 1, they've read the book, they're a dolphin, and they're ready to get help. Yeah. Number 2, they've been placed on sleeping pills. The dosage has escalated over the years. They're now taking 2, 3 types of sleep aids at the same time, and they're very uncomfortable with that. They want to get off of it. Yeah. The third type of person is somebody who's gone through all of that. They've taken themselves off of everything, but they sleep like shit, and they just want some help right? And then the fourth type is where it's something that has to do with something biological or medical, right? So it could be an undiagnosed case of sleep apnea. It could be menopause. It could be pain. There's a whole host of, so those are kind of the four buckets of people that kind of show up. Now, to be fair, I like entrepreneurs the best. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs are a very unique group of people because they've started to, they understand what they're good at and what they're not good at. And so they're like, okay, I'm not good at sleep. I need to find somebody who can help me be good at sleep because then I can be more productive at the things that I want to do. Like, it's very logic driven with entrepreneurs. And if you tell them what to do, they will do it.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10. They like to have a path and something to follow, and where it's just like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So for a lot of those people, when they come to my office, what will happen is they'll say, hey, you know, Dr. Breus, I want to come off of these medications. I say, okay, step number 1, let's talk to the prescribing doctor. So we all get on the phone and we say, hey, they want to come off these medications. I would like to create a taper schedule so we can taper this person off these medications. I use a very long taper schedule. So a lot of doctors, so for example, if you're on 10 milligrams of Ambien, they'll say cut it in half for a week, then cut that in half for a week, and then be off of it.
That's so short.
It's very short.
Yeah.
And for somebody who's been taking pills for long periods of time, it doesn't really work very well that way. So what I'll do is I'll say, cut your 10 milligrams in half. And to be clear, I'm not an MD, so this is their doctor is saying to them with my suggestion is cut it in half, and we're going to leave it there for 3 weeks. Okay, so you don't have to worry, just get used to it. Then we're going to take that 5 milligrams and cut that in half for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Then we're going to take that 2.5 and we're going to use it every other night for a week, then every third night for a week, and then we're going to come off of it. By the time I get you all the way down there, you almost don't have enough in your system for it to make any sense, for it to work. So we're slowly bringing up, because here's the problem. Almost every sleeping pill out there has something called rebound insomnia. So when you cold turkey off of it, you're up for 3 days.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, you are miserable and you don't think clearly. And all you want to do is, you know, get to sleep.
Yeah.
And so that becomes an issue. There's a fifth more complicated time that I deal with people, and that's people with substance abuse problems, because then it gets wrapped up in a very complicated situation, right? Because we've got people who they let's say they have an addiction or an alcoholism, and then all of a sudden, they have to get off of the medication that they were on.
Yeah.
And now they can't sleep. And now it's making them want to drink or use their drugs to get them to go back to sleep. So the number one relapse oftentimes is insomnia. The number one pre-symptom of relapse oftentimes is insomnia. So we're always looking at all of these different areas. But when we think about pills, number one, is it necessary? If it is, okay, then we just want to have it on the lowest dose at the most effective time and be done with it. If it is not being effective, then we need to do a taper schedule and we need to teach you how to sleep. Turns out that cognitive behavioral therapy, when placed side by side with something like Ambien, cognitive behavioral therapy not only works better, but lasts longer.
What is, as an example?
So cognitive behavioral therapy is where we change your sleeping schedule, but we also change the way you think about sleep. So CBT, specifically CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, really looks at some of those cognitive distortions. So those things that we were talking about before, like, oh, if I don't get 8 hours of sleep, it's going to peel life off the back end of, years off the back end of my life. It's not true. And so with cognitive behavioral therapy, what we do is we pull out the epidemiology books and I say, look, here's the data.
Yeah.
This is what it shows. Nobody's dying any quicker who's sleeping 7 hours than sleeping 8 hours. And it's pretty miraculous. People are like, holy crap, this was a misconception that I had. So we retrain their brain. That's where that cognitive portion comes in. The behavioral portion comes in is we give them bedtimes. Yeah. So I give them bedtimes based on their chronotype, right? And it makes it super duper effective. And so if I already know their chronotype from them taking the quiz, I give them a new wake up time, a new bedtime, a few other tips, all of the sudden, and by the way, it doesn't cost a dime to do most of the stuff that I teach people.
Yeah, get on it, guys.
Right? I mean, it doesn't. Then you've got something that's worthwhile. Now, do I see patients, who need formal one-on-one help? Of course I do.
Yeah.
and I do really, really well with them because I spend focused time with them every week. I've got probably 7 to 10 patients now that I see on a fairly regular basis, and I rotate people in as they need. But it's pretty easy to fix if you just dedicate the time to it, really put your mind to it. You'd be shocked at how easy it is. I usually fix people in 3 to 4 months.
That's amazing. And I think it comes back to, I guess, the times we're in now. Because for me, I remember growing up watching my mum work endlessly. It was like sleep till you're dead or sleep when dead. That was
everybody would say, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
And I feel like it'd be great to hear some of the misconceptions of sleep and then talking about all the benefits that why people should really focus on sleep.
Well, so here's the biggest problem is there's actually a place in our brain that the sleepier we get, the more it tells us we're okay. So it lies to us. Okay. So if you were back in caveman, cavewoman times and you were running across the plains there and you got tired, you wouldn't lie down and take a nap because you'd be lunch for a saber-toothed tiger, right? Yeah. Your brain would say, you're not tired, keep going. Yeah. Well, that same mechanism is still around. And so when you get tired, it just tells you to keep going. Now, we also have a lot of lights around us, so that has a big effect on us. Caffeine, which you seem to enjoy quite a bit of.
How can you tell?
It seems to have a pretty big effect, right? And so starting to understand how some of those things have an effect on us, I think can be very, very important. But the number one thing to remember is our brain constantly wants to tell us, hey, it's okay, push on through, or grab some sugar. That's the biggest problem, really, that people just don't know. Well, so you think it's going to give you some quick energy, which it does, but the problem is sugar decreases the production of melatonin. So that dessert at dinner is really not the best idea. And I want to be clear about something. I love dessert. I love ice cream. I love ice cream, and I really have to just push it towards the beginning of the day or the middle of the day because when you eat all that stuff late at night, it definitely has a big effect. A big myth that a lot of people don't understand is caffeine.
Tell me.
I know. I keep picking on you, but here's the problem is caffeine has a half-life of between 6 and 8 hours, right? And so if you stop at 2, 8 hours later is 10, which is when most people are at least considering going to bed. Only half of it is out of your system. So when you're a dolphin, which you are, so you have a little bit of extra energy in you, a little bit of, so I would really be looking to modify your caffeine intake because what's that is eventually doing is it's just making you jitter.
Yeah, no, and I really resonate with that too because when I went through, I was a professional athlete for a really long time. So I had to monitor my caffeine intake. It was, everything was so.
What was your sport?
Professional bodybuilding.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you have really interesting nutritional guidelines.
Yeah.
You have lots of different things going on. I don't know if you were 100% clean or not, but there's a whole different universe there because I've worked with some bodybuilders who used steroids. It really messes up your sleep.
Yeah.
Unbelievably.
I don't think they know that though because
they have no idea that it's going to happen. And they can't get enough sleep to then have enough energy the next day. So they end up taking stimulants with their steroids so they can get a bigger burn. It's a real mess because the body just ends up giving out after a while because it just doesn't have enough. It's
recovery
in it.
Really resonating now because even my partner, and it's funny because he's the type of person that falls asleep really quickly.
Don't you hate him?
Oh, I do. I'm lying in bed at night. I've got my podcast with Dr. Breus. Right. But it's interesting because he's someone that he feels really guilty that he was on his laptop today doing a bit of work. He's doing his side hustle. And I just look over to him. He's fallen asleep. And he's getting really upset about it because he's working his side hustle. He's a tradie, so he gets up 6 a.m., goes to work, comes home at 7, and then he does night shift. So he's all over the place. And we go to, America. We're here.
Right.
And so he's falling asleep all the time. That's probably another story. So, if people who are listening right now and they feel guilty for falling asleep, what is the advice you give to them and how is it? What if it's unhealthy as well?
Yeah. So,
hey, beautiful kings and queens, are you right now in a space where you're ready to take action and build your business, yet you struggle where to begin? You're feeling stuck and overwhelmed with all the things you need to do when it comes to building a business. Build the business of your dreams in the online space and be in the arena of all the incredible, great humans out there that are building 7 to 8 figure businesses. Now, the foundations that I truly believe in that you are going to learn through this membership is sales, marketing, content creation, social media, money mindset, and of course, branding. Now, all of this will be accessible for you to be learning what is currently hot right now in the market and how you can create your own business and build a successful business in the online space. All you have to do right now is DM Empire in my Instagram or email myself and my team, and we will get the ball rolling so you can have your empire and start making moves in the online space.
So there's two real parts to that I want to take apart real quick. So number one, sleep is healing. Nobody should ever feel guilty for sleeping.
Yeah.
Right? It's recovery. Yeah. If you're so tired that you can't keep your eyes open, your body is trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just is. Like, just take it for what it's worth. It's important. Number two, can you sleep too much, or can sleep be unhealthy? Yes, it can actually. So when somebody turns to me and they say, hey, Michael, I need 9, 10, 11 hours of sleep, that raises a big red flag for me. Well, because here's the thing. Most of us, when we think about sleep, we think about it as a quantity, not as a quality perspective, right? Let me tell you something. If I got you 6 hours of unbelievably high quality sleep, I can assure you'd like it more than 8 hours of light and crappy sleep.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
I really resonate.
Yeah. And so when we start to think about sleep, it's a balance. Right. The other thing I worry about is when people tell me they have 9 or 10 hours of sleep, could they have a sleep disorder? Apnea, narcolepsy, restless legs that's making their body want to sleep longer because the quality isn't there. Or could it be depression? That's another big thing that we see with a lot of people who have a tendency to stay in bed, oversleep. Depression can be a very big thing. So it's really about sleep is kind of a good window or thermometer of the whole body. If you're not sleeping well, I can assure you something else is going on somewhere in your body.
And so what would, advice for anyone listening, the next steps would just be reaching out and looking at your quiz, then seeing the proto.
No. Here's what I think people should do. Number one, take the quiz. All right. Just take the quiz. It'll take you 3 minutes. You'll learn a lot.
Yeah.
Number two, take the advice that you get from the quiz for your wake up time. So I'm going to give everybody a 5-step plan right now.
Yes, good.
Super simple, very straightforward. Step number one, wake up at the same time 7 days a week, not 5 days a week, 7 days a week.
So no sleeping on Sundays.
No sleeping in on Sundays, right? Based on your chronotype, and let me tell you why. So when you open up your eyes in the morning, light comes in and you have very special cells in your eye called melanopsin cells. These are cells, and they send a signal to your brain to turn off the melatonin faucet in your head. Okay? So light, turn off melatonin. Very important. Like it for the mornings, clears the brain fog. That's awesome. Problem is it also sets a timer. So it's a timer that sets, so let's say you're waking up at 6. You mentioned 6 before. Let's say you're waking up at 6. It sets a timer for about 14 hours later for melatonin to start, which would be about 8 p.m. It takes about 90 minutes for melatonin to get up to plasma concentration levels. You start to get sleepy. You fall asleep by 10:30. Okay? Easy peasy, right? Now you go to Saturday, and instead of waking up at 6, you wake up at 8. Well, guess what? Your melatonin isn't kicking off at 8. It's kicking off at 10. Which means you're not even ready to start thinking about sleep until 11:30, 12, which means your whole night is shifted now. You do this 2 nights in a row and you got what's called social jet lag, and that's why Mondays suck.
Yep.
Right?
And then there's Suicide Tuesdays.
Right. Exactly. So you want to keep as tight a wake up time as possible. You never want to go below 5.5 hours. I want to be super clear about that. So if you get in bed at 3 and your normal wake up time is 6, don't wake up at 6. Give yourself at least 6 hours to get yourself there. Don't go to bed early. That's a big no-no because people go to bed early and their circadian rhythms aren't there. Yeah. Then they just get pissed off. So step number one wake up time. Step number 2, stop caffeine by 2 p.m. We talked a little bit about it, but if you can, stop by 2. Thank you. I appreciate it. It'll be good for you.
Yeah.
Step number 3 has to do with alcohol. There's a really big difference between going to sleep and passing out. Okay. We don't like the passing out.
The myth was as well, red wine's great for you to fall asleep. That's a myth, right?
So red wine is actually bad because of the sugar and the tannins. Red wine actually makes you wake up. You'd be better off drinking a white or a rosé or having a gin or a vodka or even a tequila than you would any of the darker liquors or alcohols. But as a general rule, if you have more than 2 drinks, you catch a buzz. When you catch a buzz, cortisol goes up and gives you energy, which is kind of the opposite of sleep. Now, also in 2 drinks, you get a little loopy. So that makes you feel sleepy, right? So now you've got this energetic buzz going.
Yeah.
That's really not what we're trying to, land the plane on, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like there's no runway there.
Yeah.
So what I tell people all the time is step number 3 is limit yourself to 2 drinks and stop drinking 3 hours before bed.
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't mean you can't have a glass of wine or a aperitif or a scotch afterwards. I don't care. But just keep it to a low roar. Keep it to 2. Step number 4 is exercise. You're a fan. I know it. Right.
Yeah.
People should exercise every day. I'm a big fan of it. But look, you don't have to run a marathon.
No, it's just what works for you, right?
100%.
Yeah.
So everybody's got a different kind of workout routine that works for them. All I'm talking about is 20 minutes a day. And it can be walking. I don't care. I just want you to get off your butt and move. Okay. You can graduate and do more and more as it goes. But for folks out there who are not moving, I just want you to get off your butt and move. But you don't want to do it too close to bedtime because if you heat up your body, it's hard to fall asleep. So you want to stop exercise 4 hours before bed.
4 hours, and then alcohol was 3.
I'm going to go through it again and give you a quick summary in a second. Step number 5 is I want you to do 3 things every morning, what I call the 3-15s. So when you wake up in the morning, swing your legs over the side of the bed, take 15 deep breaths. This is just to wake up your respiratory system, kind of bring you present, right? Begin to start your day. Step number 2, or I guess it would be number 5, 6, would be 15 deep breaths. Okay. Just again, bring yourself present. Oh no, I already said 15 deep breaths. The second part of this is 15 ounces of water.
Yeah.
So you got to drink water. People don't know this, but
What
sleep.
would be the liters and ounces?
Oh gosh, I have no idea.
We'll look it up. Don't
We'll look
worry.
it up. It'll be in the show notes.
It'll be in the
for
notes,
sure.
yes.
For sure. 15 ounces of water, simply because sleep is a dehydrative event.
Yeah.
Most people don't know that you lose almost a full liter of water
Didn't
every
know
night
that.
just from the humidity in your breath. So drink some water and then 15 minutes of sunshine. Go outside if you can and get 15 minutes of sunlight. That kicks in that melanopsin cell. Also, that's exactly the amount of time your body needs to make vitamin D, which we all need. So in review, step number 1, have 1 wake up time based on your chronotype.
Yeah.
Step number 2, stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Step number 3, stop alcohol 3 hours before bed. Step 4, exercise daily, but stop exercise 4 hours before bed. Step 5 is do the 3-15s, which is 15 deep breaths, 15 ounces of water, and 15 minutes of sunshine in the morning.
You make it actually sound so simple.
I swear to you, it's easy to do.
And
I swear.
think that's where people go wrong. They think they need a drink, suppress, take pills.
No. Don't. If you just did the 5 things that I told you and you did them for a month, I can guarantee you your sleep will improve. I can guarantee it.
All right, let's do it then. Let's actually talk about all the benefits of sleep. You mentioned good sex.
Yep.
Sex at the right time for your chronotype.
Yep.
What else?
So honestly, sleep affects every system and every organ system and every disease state. Literally everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Whether it's a physical activity, a mental activity, it could be an emotional activity, it could be a spiritual activity. It really doesn't matter. But what sleep does, it allows you to be present and know where you are and what's going on. It allows you to get into a flow state, which a lot of people are constantly looking for because that's when they find themselves to be at kind of that effortless production state of themselves. Sleep is a benefit for emotions. Absolutely. You're a nicer person when you've slept well. You're nicer to your partner. You're nicer to your kids. You're nicer to your dog. Also, spiritually, I think it works out better for folks. When people are exhausted and they're falling asleep in the mosque or in the church or in the synagogue or whatever your place of worship is, you're not really getting what you need. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's okay. Like, I don't think the pastors really mind all that much, but they'd rather you be awake.
I'd be offended.
Yeah.
Am I boring right
Yeah, I don't think they think that. I just think they're concerned, right? You know?
Yeah.
So I think that being open spiritually, you have to have good sleep. I think being open intellectually, learning new ideas, feeding your brain, it's really tough to do when, you're not well slept. And then physical, that's kind of the obvious one, right? We know that for men, if they lose, if you lose more than 2 hours of sleep across a week, your testosterone drops almost 10 years. So if you're a 22-year-old NBA player, you play like a 33-year-old NBA player.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Thinking about athletes too, and then adding all the other things that we spoke about.
Reaction time slows down. Then there's
Yeah.
travel, like you coming from Australia, you got jet lag that's in there. Oh yeah, it's never ending.
And then you work quite closely with peak performers, right?
I do.
I'd love to know, because a lot of my listeners, entrepreneurs, peak performers, I'm going to say used to be, but it'd be nice to hear just what it is that they need uniquely for them in order to be at their best for everything.
So what I do is I do a very specific set of practices. So when somebody comes to see me, the first thing we do is we do a 45-minute interview where I really kind of figure out, like, do you have a sleep problem, or is this a sleep optimization, right? So do you have apnea, narcolepsy, restless legs, a disorder we need to fix, insomnia even, or is it just we need to get you the highest quality sleep that you can possibly get? That's a big question I have to answer first. So usually I have to do a quick sleep study, home-based sleep study, something like that, just to rule out sleep disorders. Yeah. So let's say we've ruled out your sleep disorders. Great. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to talk to your doctor and I'm going to say, hey, let's do some blood work. Yeah. I want to look at 3 different things, 4 actually, if you can do it. I want to look at your iron, I want to look at your magnesium, I want to look at your vitamin D, and I want to look at your melatonin. So I'd ask your doctor, because I'm not an MD, I would ask your MD to get blood work done so we could see, are you in the right ballpark? Because a lot of people are like, well, what supplement would you put me on for sleep? I'm like, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. How do I know what supplement to put you on?
I love that you do blood work, by the way.
We have to, because at the end of the day, if this unit isn't working correctly, that's the place to start.
Yeah.
Right. Like I tell people all the time, you don't have a deficiency in ashwagandha. Okay. But you might have a deficiency in vitamin D. And if we fix that, your life might be a lot better.
The complex things, right?
Right. Exactly. So we do that. And then if they have no deficiencies, then I do something that's very unique is I actually do full genetic testing. So I take a DNA swab, or I can take your 23andMe or your Ancestry.com, and I push it up against 74 different sleep markers. So with a fair degree of predictive validity, I can tell you what your sleep's going to be like in 20 years. So for example, let's say you've got all the markers for sleep apnea, right? Then I'm going to have a very specific plan for you, because I'm going to want to watch your weight, your neck size. I'm going to want you to have head and neck exams on a fairly regular basis, make sure things aren't getting crowded in there, so we can prevent apnea from, potentially causing a big problem for you. So we look at those type of things. We know exactly what your chronotype is from your DNA. That's super easy to find.
Yeah.
And so then I get in there and then I create a very specialized plan. So I do a pre-bed plan and I do a morning plan as well. Then we do jet lag management. And then I work within people's training schedules. So whether it's a CEO or an athlete or an actor, they all train on something somehow. And so I bring that in. So like as an example, I work with a DJ. Sometimes his name is Steve Aoki, right? And so Steve does 200 shows a year.
Yeah.
So, he has a very unique setup for his sleep that nobody else would ever have, because he has to be able to sleep on an airplane. He has to be able to sleep in a house. He has to be able to sleep in a hotel. He has to be able to sleep, everywhere. So we do special things for him to allow him to do that. So it's not as hard as you might think. It's just being thoughtful, understanding what's kind of going on with people, and then working it out. But almost everybody that I see has a very unique set of circumstances that we fix them on.
It's almost a strategy, like for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we use some of the same pieces.
Yeah.
Because some things work for everybody, like, changing your sleep times and lowering caffeine at certain times and things like that. But then some things are very, very individualized. So I usually start out with the general parts, and then I can start to tack on the smaller things. And then something weird always happens, like, oh, I've got to go to Paris next week or some crazy, something like that. And then I'm trying to figure out their schedule. So it's fun. I mean, it works well. And I get to meet a lot of really interesting people who have some very unique issues. And it's fascinating. Sleep is really, I would say it all boils down to safety.
Yeah.
If you feel safe, you'll sleep, right? So whatever that means. So if you just had a baby, then you also want that baby to be safe. If you don't think that baby's safe, you ain't going to sleep, right? If you're working and your finances are not in order and you think you're in some type of financial burden, you're in financial unsafety. You're not going to sleep. Right. So just thinking about, and then the physical surroundings, like if you don't have a nice physical surroundings, you think somebody's going to come in, you're not going to sleep. Right. So when you start to really boil it down, we're really talking about the most vulnerable state that your body is in any given moment of the day. And you have to feel safe. And if you feel safe, you will sleep.
people are really taking it for granted, and I can just see the work you're doing. And I'm so grateful to have you here.
Thanks.
I could talk to you all day. I have 2 questions.
Fire away.
I really want to understand. My partner and I sleep on the same bed, clearly.
Yeah.
And he loves a harder mattress. I prefer a softer. So advice or anything that you recommend when it comes to mattresses,
Oh, yeah.
toys, I don't know.
The
anything.
works.
Yes.
Okay, so we have done reviews on just about everything you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
So we've done over 150 mattress reviews on my website. So we have, for
How
example,
many? 150.
150 different
Amazing.
ones. So we've got them for like, what's the best mattress for side sleepers? What's the best for back sleepers? What's the best for bigger people? What's the best for menopause? What's that? Like, we've done all kinds of testing. So wander around and see what you can find. I highly recommend that. But like, as an example, if you've got one person who likes it soft and one person who likes it firm, buy a firm bed and then you put a topper on top of the person's side who wants it softer.
Yeah.
That way you can kind of stay in the same bed. Some people will have 2 separate beds if they just put 2 separate beds together. And some people will have articulating beds, where they can go up and down. It just kind of depends upon what works for you. But I do want to bring up a point that I think is important that a lot of people don't think about. I want to be clear that the strength of your relationship does not depend upon whether or not you sleep in the same bed. Okay? Because a lot of people are like, I've got to sleep in the same bed with my partner. Otherwise, that means something bad about our relationship. It doesn't mean anything about your relationship. It means that maybe your partner snores, or maybe your partner likes to sleep with the TV on, or maybe the partner has 2 bulldogs in the bed. That would be my story. And you have to deal with that. That's just how life is sometimes, right? And so it's okay to sleep in the guest room 2 or 3 nights a week if you're not trying to escape your relationship, but you are just trying to get a good night's rest, more power to you. But I don't want people to think, oh my gosh, this is something terrible about me, because it's really not. But I will tell you this, having a good bed, and even better yet, a good pillow, makes all the difference in the world. 100%.
Happier person, happier wife, happier life.
Yes. Happy person, happy pillow, right?
Now, this podcast is all about people's dreams to build their empires. I have 2 more. I know I said 2 more before.
It's all good.
The empire question I have is, what does empire mean to you?
Yeah, so it's a funny word, because I used to tell people all the time, I would say, I'm building a sleep empire, hop on or get out of my way, right? And that was how I felt about it, was if I was going to be the person who was going to be out there and talking about sleep, if you're going to build an empire, you have to have a strong foundation. And that's where clinical-based evidence was for me. So I always knew I didn't have to lean on my own intelligence all the time. I could lean on the intelligence of these researchers who've been researching sleep for years and years and years. And so for me, the empire aspect of it all is know the truth, know your shit, don't be afraid to say it, right? Like, get out there and talk about it. And if somebody says something that the literature doesn't support, you don't have to be obnoxious about it, but you can definitely raise your hand and say, hey, I've seen 3 studies that don't support that. Help me understand, where you're coming from. Maybe you've discovered something new, right? 9 times out of 10, they haven't discovered anything new. They just haven't read the literature correctly. Yeah. Right. And so if you're going to build an empire, think about, what does that mean? That means you're going to be an emperor, right? And if you're going to be an emperor, you better know what's going on at all times with your subject matter and at your topic. And it's going to take a lot of sacrifice, right? I mean, if you're going to build an empire, you're not going to get to go to every baseball game. You're just not. You're not going to get to go to every play, every dance recital. I wish you could. I mean, I know there are people that do, and I think that it's amazing that they get an opportunity to do so. But I don't know if those people are trying to create an empire or not. I
think I heard recently, fake it until you become it.
That's
Not
an interesting,
fake it till you make it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, like, I think, number one, I think there's room for plenty of emperors. Yeah. Right. And I'm not the person who says I know absolutely everything there is to know about sleep. Far from it. But I think that if we have enough people who get on about a topic, right? So whatever that topic is, whether it's how to create your empire, sleep, whatever it is, but if you can get on a topic and really know the topic and really be helpful to other people, provide value to people for the topic, I think that's where you kind of get the good things in life show up.
Dr. Breus, our final question.
I don't believe you, but that's okay.
I
know. Go on.
For the listeners and for myself.
Sure.
Because you've been an absolute ball of fun.
Sure.
If you were to give that one key to the listeners, that one piece of advice for them to open the gates to whatever that is, what would that key be?
Is it a piece of sleep advice or is it just a piece of life advice?
Whatever comes to you. You can have as many as you want. You're the sleep.
Oh, good. So the one thing I would say is wake up at the same time 7 days a week. I know I've said it like a million times, but I swear to you, it really, really works. I think that's a really good one. I think the other big one for me, I've been reading a lot about success lately. I've read I like biographies. I've read Stephen King's, I read Steve Martin's, I've read Dan Sullivan. I've read a bunch of biographies lately. And there's one thing that everybody seems to have in common.
Yeah.
And that's that they stuck around long enough for their idea to make it. So it's really about persistence.
Yeah.
You know, like don't be persistent with a stupid idea. Like if it's failing, you know, pivot, turn, adopt, you know, but don't stop.
Yeah.
Right. It's like if you just keep I started talking about sleep 25 years ago. Okay. Like 1998.
Yeah.
Right. Like nobody was talking about sleep back then. Nobody was talking about sleep. I mean, I was talking about sleep through the energy drink, you know, universe and all of that. Nobody was talking about sleep then. Now, all of a sudden, people want to talk about sleep.
But you stayed persistent.
Right. Right. And I think that's really the key is if you feel good in your heart about what you're doing, right, you know, you're doing something good for people. You just got to keep at it and you just got to keep pushing for it. You'll get there. It just takes time.
Dr. Michael Breus, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks. I've had a great time.
I have had the best time. Sending you so much queen energy.
Thank you. I'm taking it.
Is there anything you want to drop before we wrap up this amazing episode?
No, I just want to let everybody know that it is possible to get better sleep. I know there are people out there who are thinking, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I haven't slept well in 20 years. Trust me, I do know what I'm talking about. I have met you before somewhere in the past and there are solutions. So I don't want people to think that there aren't solutions. Also, I want everybody to know that you can build your own empire, right? Like that's something that everybody out there can do and continue listening to the podcast, figure out what your empire is and then go build it.
So just so everyone knows, he's been giving me quite the hint that I'm a dolphin and I need to make some changes with my sleep. So everyone listening, thank you so much for the first guest speaker of Keys to the Queendom here in the US, California. I'm your host, Tamara Meyer.